going on, everybody? Welcome to the 50th episode of the podcast. We're here with the little chicken dude. And microphone's on? Okay, good. The microphone's on. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to the brand new episode. The lamp is not going to be on today because I forgot to turn it on. But, yeah, guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode 50. It's been a while in the making. I want to just give a big thank you to everybody who's been sticking it out with us since the beginning, since episode 1, since the setup was, I think, over there, or it was here facing this way instead of in the corner of the room. But yeah, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who's been showing love, supporting it, watching episodes. I know there's people that watch every single episode, and that doesn't go unnoticed. I appreciate that, and I thank everybody for doing that. And it shows me that the podcast, the episodes I put out, the information I put out, the vulnerability that I show as an individual, the life events, my life, and the way I talk about certain things, the things I share, the things that I don't share, the way I react to certain aspects of life. They don't go unnoticed, and you guys appreciate them. You guys can relate to them, and I think that is what I enjoy most about doing this. About doing this podcast is I can talk to people. I can talk to myself. I can clear my mind with irrational ideas. I can have thoughts and fulfill them. I can explore the back part of my brain that has thoughts and experiences that I may not know of consciously, but by using words and by talking for a long period of time and by throwing things up against the wall, I can grasp those specific ideas that are in the back of my brain that I didn't even know exist. And they allow me to formulate them in a certain way, which allows me to better myself throughout the world, and it allows me to communicate with more people. It allows me to understand people, to be angry less. I think by enriching your mind with a variety of different experiences and different ideas, and to challenge your own ideas, not from external forces, but from internal forces. I think that is a great thing to do. I think it's a challenge that everybody has, and I think it's a challenge that everyone needs to accept. And I think by accepting that challenge, you can be a more functional or more logical person in this world, and you won't be you won't feel a sense of isolation. I think by allowing yourself as an individual to partake in many different groups of the world, to understand multiple cultures, to have an intelligence, or at least an awakening to an intelligence, a want to enrich your mind, I think will allow you to feel less isolated, because you'll be more accepted, and you can understand people and groups of people when you are not accepted. I think that's something that is very important from a moral standpoint, from a value-based standpoint, to, instead of feeling anger towards somebody, and this is something that I work on all the time, and I catch myself like not doing it sometimes. Is this guy a distraction to you? I don't know. It probably is. Maybe I'm going to put it right there. But now you can only see one of my chips. But instead of always, when you're confronted in a situation when you're combating this conflict of ideas, maybe there's a lack of respect that you think should have been portrayed by an opposite party, or maybe a word or two or a phrase or body position was not in your mind what you deserved at that specific time. I think by having a better sense of meaning of the world through conversations and through learning and through reading and through just intrinsic thoughts and completing your thoughts. I think instead of being angry towards that person, which is ironic because when you're angry towards somebody, the person themselves isn't suffering from anything. The only person suffering from anger is yourself, and it's a conflicting idea, and you don't really want to understand it. It's understandable once you can let yourself understand it and how much it makes sense, right? I mean, if you're very upset with somebody, the other person won't feel that. They won't feel the upset or the anger as much as you have, as much as you put it upon yourself. So by trying to understand why the person did that, or at least saying, oh, well, maybe they said that because of this, or to at least have a better, well-based knowledge of them as an individual, it will allow you to come to fruition or to come to a understanding of why that person said, did, or didn't say, or didn't do what you think they should have done. And I think you're protecting yourself, and I think you're protecting the other person, and I think you're protecting your current self and your future self. Yeah, and I think it's important to have a place. I don't know. For me, it's a podcast. Up to a point. Obviously, I don't share everything on here, but I think it is very important for as an individual, if you're living in this world with so much chaos going on and so many unthoughtful ideas being thrown out and catchphrases everywhere you look, whether it be social media, the news, or claims without any backing, or anything that like claims like the world's going to end in 10 minutes if we don't fix the climate, or 10 years. Things that are said but with no merit. I think it's important to find a group of people where you can actually just have your own thoughts, instead of just peacocking, or I guess parroting everything you hear during the day, to be able to sit down and really try to understand what the deeper meaning is, and to formulate your own theories and your own opinions on things. That's a form of self-love, I would say, and I think that's a form of intelligence, definitely. And I think that is a great way to move towards the direction of happiness. And it is a tool that will allow you to be more capable to adjust when situations arise that didn't go as you planned or as you predicted them, or maybe as you wanted them to go. And I think it's very important to just to develop your own thoughts and develop your own hypothesis. And then I think the most crucial point that I'm trying to make here is that you can't be afraid to express those thoughts. And I think there's a real issue in this current climate in society where people have their first reaction of a thought is it going to offend a lot of people, or is it wrong or right? But and it's one of those things where you don't know, and even if you kind of have a feeling, I think it's better to attempt or to try to gather this thought into a more concise idea. And if it offends, or if it doesn't come out the way that you wanted it to, which is very likely, and it's something I've done many times on the podcast, is to excuse my dog. She's been barking all day. But I think it's very important to have a conversation with yourself, and to I lost my train of thought. She started barking. To not be afraid to not say something because it could possibly come off offensive to people, and there's a difference between being saying things that are offensive and being an offensive person. I think everybody's going to. I mean, the math behind it. I mean, the basic concept is like, here's the truth that if you say anything, it's going to offend somebody or a group of people, no matter what it is. And I think that's a concept that we as a collective group needs to understand. I mean, you can say so many things to describe somebody, and 1,000 of them could be agreeable, but you're going to eventually say something that's disagreeable and is offensive to somebody out there. Too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny, whatever. I mean, whatever it is, too poor, too rich, doesn't matter. But you have to, and I know I have to start devaluing the danger of saying something offensive and start valuing the openness of expression and communication. Because by doing that, it will lead to an understanding of other people and other thought processes, which will in the long run allow us to have a deeper connection towards everybody instead of the cancel culture or the fear that you're going to say something that's going to completely destroy somebody. And the ironic thing is, I'm watching this Harvey Weinstein stuff. Weinstein, I don't know, Harvey Weinstein, and it's talking about I was a gentleman who was raping all the female movie stars, or I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was technically raping them, but he was definitely like sexually assaulting them, and he would in order to get like movie roles, you had to, if you slept with him, you get a higher movie role, you get paid more money or stuff like that, which is something that's illegal, right? You should go to prison. But as you're watching all this really fall apart, or not fall apart, but come into fruition, I was like, I don't think he's been in jail, and I don't think he has been in jail, and I don't think he's actually stepped foot in prison. I think all he's been doing is just going to court after court after court after court and just giving money away, money and money and money, now to the point where he's completely broke. And it makes you think, it makes you question. And then you have Bill Cosby, who, I mean, he was drugging and raping people. So it's a different. I mean, this is what I'm trying to get at. There's different levels to everything, and like, though you can't really compare those two. I mean, one was, I don't want to say worse or better than her. I don't want to say worse or one's worse than the other, because they're both horrible, disgusting, inhumane things. And if I was a father and that happened to my daughter, I would go into a rampage and somebody would probably end up dying if I found out about it. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that we can't take all these things going on in the world. We can't take every Me Too movement story, and we can't take every time we hear anything about anything or anyone and just lump them into the same category. You can't lump Bill Cosby into the same pool as like a I don't know, like those when somebody like, I don't know, somebody talks out because somebody hugged them without permission of hugging them. You can't call that you can't put that on the same level as a Bill Cosby, because what does that do? Why can't you do that, Mike? Like, you should be able to do that. Well, no, you can't, because then you are taking the disgustingness away from Bill Cosby, this person who was a complete utter waste of life, raping these women while they're drugged. You're devaluing the amount of violence as that was. It's at moments like that, you need to be they need to have their own category of disgust, and I think when we collect everything, we put everything into one big pile, there's no conversation to be had, because it's out of mind, out of sight. And I think by doing a podcast or by talking to people or by getting coffee with somebody, I think what you're doing is exchanging ideas and you're exchanging thoughts and you're exchanging, you're exchanging ideas, and I think that's something that people need to do more. And I think that's something that people are doing more. And I think it's a beautiful thing when I hear somebody, it's a little scary at first, but when someone says, "Oh, you have a podcast," and they end up watching my podcast, and it's fascinating because they, most of it's, "Oh, that's awesome, congratulations, that's so cool of you," and then it's like, "What do you talk about?" And I'm like, "I talk about, really anything that's in my head. I at least run across a mic, and I do that to portray myself as just a human being, um, but also because I want this podcast to relate to as many people as possible. And I think by me just being the person I am, and with the experiences I've lived, and with the moments I've had, and the people I share this life with, this weird sense of consciousness that I have, by me sharing those stories, it connects the world into a better place. And I think it's better. It's good. It's good for people to hear it. And I think that makes people feel more connected. And I think it makes people happier at times. And I think it can make people more sad at times. But I think it can connect people more if there's something that I said within the past 20 minutes or within the past 40 hours of me doing a podcast, that you sit there and you're like, "Oh, that makes sense." And I can, I've experienced that before. Like, I've done that. I remember when I was a kid that happened to me, or I remember thinking that when I know I probably shouldn't have, or I remember getting punished that way, or, like having that idea. I think that is I think it's a domino effect. I really do. I think the rise of social media and the rise of, um, I don't want to say cell phones, but the development of an addiction towards a screen has made society as itself antisocial. And the idea of being antisocial has taken on a completely different meaning. It used to be weird, but now it's like, "Oh, you're like the cool kid if you're like antisocial, like, oh, you don't waste your time talking to those people because fuck people because they judge you and they judge you." But, I think it's good to be judged, because if you're being judged by a lot of people about a specific thing, it's probably something that you should look into. And I think it's something that you can't just dismiss, right? I can't just dismiss if five people comment on the video, if five people come to me and say something to me about what I said on the podcast. I can't just dismiss that as like, "Oh, you fucking hypocrite," like, or not hypocrite, but like, "Dude, you're just you're just judging me, bro." Like, yeah, it gets to the point where it's like, no, actually, that's by me putting a podcast out there and not expecting somebody to judge me. That's arrogant. That's ignorant of me. That's ignorant of me, right? I welcome that, essentially, right? I kind of welcome that by doing this, and it's very important to connect with as many people as possible while still maintaining a healthy relationship with yourself and keeping a distinction between personal life and the public view of you. And I think I know for me, that's something I've always struggled with. Like, I've never been able to do that really. But I'm getting better and better at it. I mean, I was listening to this podcast. It's called Tiger Belly with Bobby Lee and his girlfriend Kalila. And Kalila and Theo Von was on, and Kalila was talking to Theo Von about Bobby, and she's, Bobby's there. And she's like, one thing about Bobby is he does this thing where he tells, if he meets somebody and he's uncomfortable, or not uncomfortable, but he's afraid, I guess would be the better term. He will tell that person so much, even if it's just a random person, a fan. He would tell that person so much about himself and about his personal life and about his thoughts that the person can't, Bobby can't be disappointed if, like, you know everything about me now, now get away from me, you know? And I think that's something that I've had to learn to not do. I've had to really I had to take a step back and like, no, Mike, you can't tell everybody about everything all the time because it's not good, because, you know, you have to develop a group of people that you keep secret things to, and you only talk to certain people about certain things. And, you know, that's just something I've had to, I wouldn't say deal with, but something that I've been working towards, maybe, I guess is the word I'm looking for, working towards. Um, but yeah, I think it's a domino effect. So if you say anything good on a podcast, if you say something good to somebody out there, I mean, all a podcast is just, it allows you to elevate the amount of people that you can talk to. But if you can make someone feel good and they go back into this world in a better mood than when they came and they had that experience with you, I think, boom, that's a win. That's a net positive. You know, you talk about how to make the world a better place. Well, you start with the kids, right? You know, you start with the kids. You start at the base. You make everybody not a loser. You know, you make everybody feel accepted. You make everyone feel powerful. You make everyone powerful about themselves. You make everyone feel confident. You make everybody just feel a sense of pride when they do something. If you're a grave digger, instead of making that grave digger feel like they're just a low skilled job, you make them feel like it's a great job. You know, like for me, I've always wanted to be a UPS driver, and I've always wanted to be a dump truck driver or dump truck runner. I don't think a driver. But I think a part of me didn't want to do that because I felt like it was not below me, but there'd be a sense of judgment that came along with it, and I didn't want to do that because I felt embarrassed by it. But if you can, I think something that needs to be done is everything that you do, as long as it's positive for the world and positive for you, I think it's positive for the world. I wouldn't say positive for you because, you know, guys like Jeffrey Dahmer, it was positive for him to eat people, but for the world, that's not a positive thing. Unless it's a zombie apocalypse. Actually, that's still not a positive thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get all sappy with everybody, but I'm just saying, thank you for everyone who has allowed me to have this platform where I can just talk, and you guys listen, and you guys enjoy it, and I can be on episode 50, and you guys still stick around, and you watch what I have to say, even though a lot of it is stupid. Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's cool. God, dude, I love my setup. I gotta get a bigger chair though. This chair's just not big enough. It just makes me like slouch over. But hopefully you guys liked the 2 episodes. The last 2 I had guests on. I had my girlfriend on, and that was just a fucking hilarious podcast. It's so fun to just sit down and joke around with people like that. Then I had my sister on, and we had I don't really know what we talked about. I think I did a lot of talking. She did less talking. It's so weird though. Like, I've had people on, and it's people get on the podcast, and I don't really know what they expect. I don't really know what they expect, but sometimes people get on here and they freeze up almost, and they don't really know what to talk about, and it makes it awkward for me because I'm like, okay, well, what are we gonna? Like, I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to talk to you like we were doing downstairs before we came upstairs in my room and we put the studio lights on, and I put the camera on you. You know, I think people freeze up. But I think those last 2 episodes were good. You know, for my sister and my girlfriend, it was the second time on for both of them, and I think that makes it a little bit easier. But it is a weird thing. It can throw you off, and it can confuse you. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy these 2 episodes. I really much enjoy them. They're really fun to do. My girl's going to be back in town, so I'm probably going to have her on as like a regular guest, because her and I can have some really in-depth conversations, and they can go on for hours. So I think it would be cool for people to hear what we have to say. But she's also totally down to like make fun of things and like laugh. Like the last episode where we just talked about like crazy shit. I think she's really cool in that sense. She's totally down for a silly goose time too. So, but yeah. So what's been going on with me? This week I got out of school. You know, I finished up my school semester. Man, if you asked me a year ago, not even a year, if you asked me on episode 1 or 2 if I was gonna be done with school, like if I was gonna graduate school, I would or not graduate, but get through a whole semester of school like with good grades. I would laugh at you. Like I may come off like I was confident about it, but geez, I definitely was not that confident about it. Um, yeah, but it's crazy to think I did well in all my classes. I took all my exams. I studied, and and I have the next like 10, 15 days off, just family and hanging out and chilling, and um, hopefully doing some things at work that I'm excited about. With the podcast too. Hopefully, a few things I might be doing with the podcast. But yeah, just overall good place right now. I've started trading on the stock market. I guess I've been buying stocks in the stock market. Not I don't really know how important that is for me to tell you, but just trying to increase the levels of financial avenues that I can get. Uh, but yeah, it's out of school this semester. Overall went well. I didn't. It was just hectic. Like my schedule is nuts, and it feels good to just have time alone. Now times like this are not alone, but off, and not having to always do something. Um, that is something that I have always had. I've always struggled with, and I probably will always struggle with is the concept of um, it's okay to do nothing. Like it's okay to just kind of relax for a little bit. It's actually really healthy. Like it's actually good for you to do that. I've never been able to fully comprehend that concept. I've always just been I wouldn't say a go getter. Like I don't get after it all the time. I don't like that. I don't like saying, "Oh, go get after it." Like that shit to me just sounds a little corny, honestly. But I definitely have always been uncomfortable with not doing anything. That's always been something I struggled with, and it puts me like in a downward spiral because you run out of gas eventually, and I run out of gas, and I think I was running out of gas, but now I'm going to force myself at least for a week. You know, I'm recording this on the 18th. You guys are watching this on the 19th. At least until Christmas, you just kind of chill out a little bit. I've cleaned up my diet for the last 2 weeks. I'm feeling good about my weight. I feel like I finally look good with the shirt off again. But I'm just trying to overall. I was so busy with school and I didn't really realize it that I was just kind of like spiraling out a little bit. But I'm finally putting shit together. I'm grabbing things and I'm putting them back into like a nice, neat pile. I'm folding my clothes and I'm starting to take care of myself again, which I cannot stress how important that is to make sure you got your fucking head on straight, because if you don't have your head on straight, yeah, that's not good. You got to keep your head on straight. It's healthy. It's good for you. And nobody else will help you in that area. But it feels good to just have a week off. And I'm going to force myself to take a week off and just like chill. Do nothing. I don't have to do anything. I can just relax a little bit. But yeah, so got out of school and that fucking pumped about that. I'm starting class up on the 1st, I think January 1st. I got to look into that. I just don't really want to right now. But yeah, so yeah, that's exciting. But I finished the book Catcher in the Rye, and it was a good book. Like people always have told me about this book and how I should read this book and how I should how not how I should read it, but I was told by my girlfriend to read it, and she said it was a really good book. She didn't really say it's a good book. She said, I think you should read it, and I didn't really know what that meant. But as I was reading the book, it was really fascinating, and as I was reading it, a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's a classic." And then I asked them, like, "What do you think about it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's not really for me." And I'm reading it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, it's not. Like, definitely isn't for you. It's definitely not really for anybody unless you are that character." I don't think the book is interesting because you're supposed to read in high school. I think that's when everyone read it. So I didn't read it in high school. I think I was supposed to, but I probably like spark noted it up to the point so bad where I didn't really understand the characters at all. And I don't even remember it. But I think in high school is not when you should read that book, because in high school, the way the kid is kind of, I think, how a lot of kids' mindsets are, at least in high school. Not to the extreme, but at least developing towards that way, I would say. And I think I'm fairly confident saying that. But it was a good book, and I really liked it. I enjoyed the randomness of it. I enjoy the impulsivity of it. I enjoy like, the honesty of the character himself, the confusion. Um, I enjoy the character defaults of him. I like the personality trait he had. Not like I enjoyed it like I wish I had it because I'm happy I don't. But I guess like I like it in the sense that it was just interesting to read about. The book was a lot like the movie version of Joker. I don't know if you've seen Joker, but if you haven't, I highly recommend seeing that movie. I loved the movie. But in many ways, the character of Catcher in the Rye is a lot like the character um, of Joker, Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. Arthur something, I don't know. But in many ways, they're very similar, and I think it's an important book for every dude out there to read. And I think it's an important book for everybody to read, and to read it without trying to connect to it. I don't think you have to do that with books. I don't think not all books are intended for you to connect with. And what was really interesting about the book, I think more than anything else, was the way that the character developed and the way the character acted was written from an author who, in my mind, acted the same fucking way. I don't know the author. I've done a little research on who he was as a person, but I think the characters in that book were depictions in the main character. I think the main character was a depiction of the author's life, just as a written from a grown man's perspective, but as he would been a kid. Um, yeah. So like in that sense, like in a creativity way, I really enjoy the book. The plot obviously is not that it's not really there too much. It's just a thought process. The book is a lot of thinking, which is good, and it's for my first fiction book ever. I think it's my first fiction book I've ever read. It's good. I liked it. Good book. But yeah, so that led me to I was reading on the last podcast this book I'm starting, and this book is called NeuroTribes: The Legacy of Autism and the Future Neurodiversity. This book is super, super fascinating, and it's so much fun to read. And it's written by a gentleman by the name of Steve Silberman with a B, not V, Stevesilb as in boy, Erman. And he's a journalist, and he's a scientific journalist, and it's an incredible book. I went to Barnes & Noble without the intention to buy a book, but I was just walking through the aisles, and I guess the red lettering and like the little flower design on the front. I was in the psychology section because every time I go to Barnes & Nobles, I go to the I always go to the science section, but now since I think it's the holidays, they're kind of shrinking the science section in the psychology section to, I guess, just put like more like self-help books up there. I think that's what people want during the holidays, and I don't know, but fuck, whatever. I don't care. I started off with self-help books. They're good though. I think they serve its purpose. They have a purpose, and they serve it. They have a market, and they deliver. Like there's people who love them, and I enjoy some of them. I do. I have some, or at least I've read some. I wouldn't say I had some, but I definitely had some. I don't know what it is. I am exhausted today. I'm so fucking tired, dude. I don't know why. I think I've just had too much caffeine and I shut down my adrenal glands, and I'm just a tired person right now. Ugh. Fuck. I'm so tired. But yeah, so I got this book, and I'm about 100 pages in. I think it's like a 500-page book, and it's such a fun read. Steve Silberman, he writes in a way that is very not agnostic, but not okay. I guess what I was expecting from this book is more, and I don't know why I expected this, but I expected this more of a science perspective. But he shares stories about families who have children that suffer from autism, and he talks about the history of autism and Asperger's, and how autism and Asperger's have always been treated with an unequal representation, and how these kids with Asperger's and autism, especially autism, have always been treated like shit. Like how autism was had this idea that it was like you could get rid of it, by eating certain things, um, by doing like just taboo and fake doctor things. Like there was this woman who took her kid to, and this is like early '90s, mid '90s, early 2000s, where like this woman would take her kid who had autism to the doctors, a doctor, quotation marks, and but Steve talks about this to just show the scrutiny that this part of the world had for way too long. And he explains in such a beautiful way, and how she went there because she's so desperate, because at the time it wasn't like, instead of making sure your autistic child could live a functional life, it was, can we get rid of this like we can get rid of the flu? And the answer had to be yes. And the doctors, these fake doctors who kept on making claims that it could be and could be and could be. And so these parents are running around looking for that answer. And there's this one where this lady took her kid to the doctor, and the doctor was prescribing her all these diets, and how, oh, he has too much mercury, we have to do this. Essentially, it was like a a procedure where they would put like a metal rod to the kid's face to get rid of mercury from the kid's body, because apparently that was like the cause of autism, which was fucking bullshit at the time and not true at all. And I don't know what it is, but it's not true. That's not, at least it's not a link to it. But the doctor would be like, and your kid's diet is fucked up here. He needs this. He can't eat this. Blah, 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 blah. And if you know anything about kids, certain kids with autism, a symptom could be where if there's any type of change, they lose the goddamn mind. So if you change your food, they lose the goddamn mind. But he was putting them on these diets where the food was just low energy. It was sucking the life out of these kids. He was starving them minerally, vitaminally at a micro level, micronutrient level, calcium and all this stuff. These kids weren't getting anymore, and then they're thrown off their routine, and he wasn't doing anything. There was no science backing any of this shit. It was a hoax, and it was these doctors playing with these kids' lives, and it got so bad where the doctor was telling them what diet should go on, and boom, down the hallway in the doctor's office was all the food and everything. It was like a grocery store where you could buy your supplements that he was recommending and all this shit. And then there was like two of these doctor's offices, and there was like on the opposite side of the country, and so these parents couldn't interact with each other, and the internet came along and fucked this all up. Email came along, and these guys eventually got caught. And what he was doing is, this diet's not working because there's a trace of energy trapped in his spinal cord or whatever. And I'm not lying, and I'm butchering it a little bit. I'm probably, but I mean, what I'm saying is what he's saying. I'm just adding like my own words to like transition, because my brain is jumping everywhere right now, and I'm so fucking tired. Oh my god, I'm tired. But yeah, and then so he said this bullshit thing about the kids like energy and spine, and since his energy is like blocking like the mineral supply and like the ability for the things to get to the places to get to things, and so he recommended this chiropractor, and then they take the kids to the chiropractor, and at this point the parents are skeptical of it, but they are also like, it doesn't matter if you're skeptical, if there's a chance, or at least there's a perceived possibility. I mean, this parents were like, fuck yeah, we gotta get it fixed. And it ended up that they weren't trying to get it fixed. They were trying to allow the kid to live a healthy life and succeed in a life with his setbacks, quote unquote. But the chiropractor that they were sending him to, the dad was like getting skeptical of it. He looked it up, and it was a fucking doctor's wife. And so they were swapping clients. And the doctor was talking about this kid that, oh, we saved this one kid. This kid, we saved his life because of this diet. And then he saw like a picture of the kid, the dad did, and then when he went over to the chiropractor with the kid, he saw this, or with his kid, he saw the same picture of the kid who had his whole life saved, and it was their son, you know? So these doctors, this guy doctor is recommending this chiropractor who's also a sham to his wife who's a chiropractor, and the kid that they quote unquote saved, all of these kids that we saved, the only one they could talk of was their son. But his book's really interesting because I didn't like the idea that I didn't know much about autism, so I wanted to learn about autism and Asperger's per se, because I have friends that have Asperger's, and I wanted to understand it better. I want to understand them. I don't want to diminish that I can understand what it seems like to be them, because I can't. But I want to understand when their world a little bit, so at least I can relate to it, and I don't feel like, I think me not knowing is like disrespectful. I think I should attempt to at least know a little bit about at least the black and white idea of it, but not how I can feel in the situation, but at least to know the situation a little bit better. But yeah, so great book, and I highly recommend it. It's a winner of the Samuel Johnson Prize book. It's a New York Times bestseller, and I'm loving it. And I don't know when it came out per se. I should stop saying per se because I don't know what that means. (2015) 2016 by Steve Silverman. So, but I love it. It's a great book. But yeah, I'm going to probably go ahead and end this podcast here. About 45 minutes into it. I'm just tired. I might take a little nap. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not much of a napper. I always say I want to nap, but I never do. But that was episode 50, guys. We're halfway to 500, and I can't thank you guys enough for showing me so much love and supporting the podcast as much as you guys do, and I can feel the love. And you guys are beautiful people, and I will catch you guys in episode 51. On Christmas or Christmas Eve. But hopefully you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for spending the last 50 minutes here with me and listening to me ramble. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you guys in episode 51. See ya.